I like that we did the really teeth-pulling parts of this conversation to get them out of the way, specifically to avoid having to get into the Cyberpunk discussion, because, boy, I bet we're all real fucking tired of talking about that game, aren't we?
Pretty much.
Damn. Yep.
Yeah, so Cyberpunk wins?
Yep.
I think so.
We have to have some kind of discussion.
I think the only thing we not to dunk on Cyberpunk too much, but I think we have to say which part of Cyberpunk wins, which is the
which part? Which part? Which part?
Yeah.
Man, you just extended this conversation by an hour. You want to get into the parts of Cyberpunk that are distressing?
Because if you want to talk about something that is. That game to me is you roll the car out of the shop and it falls up. It is the cartoon car falls apart, the wheels fall off. It's like the gorgeous Ferrari, and then you're like, check it out, and then just kind of falls apart in a weird way.
It's just a guy driving a chassis and a steering wheel and like an engine, but also that guy is T-posing the whole time while he's doing it.
That game that will be Ralph Nader fucking unsafe at any speed example in video game form.
Yep.
That game is like consumer watchdog territory and all just up and down, man.
Yeah. Woo. I mean, one of the two console makers pulling the biggest game of the year from their online store is basically unprecedented.
One of the bigger mainstream news stories of the year.
After CD Projekt Red was like, oh, you should get refunds on it, but without contacting Sony first, just saying like, oh yeah, get refunds.
Yes.
They went so... Go ahead, Vinny.
Well, I was going to say, and probably the hard part is, it's so hard to talk about the game because of all the stuff that is kind of affects playing the game, a part of it. Like, even to get to that part, you have to dig through a lot of layers to be like, okay, now let's talk about which is not a perfect game. Like for me, like when you get down into it, which is like, now these systems in here, how do these work? You have to kind of dig through a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I think there's even in a world where this game worked as well on consoles or as it did on the PC, that is still a pretty average game. And I think that's the part that like you dig down all the layers, you finally get to the bottom, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's like a slightly more open world Deus Ex, but like, why do the pedestrians not react in normal ways? Why is the police response so terrible? Like, why, you just start looking at all these gameplay systems that have been solved and been done better in other games. And the whole thing just continues to fall apart. And it's crazy. It's crazy that is
released in this state,
Yeah. For how long that game was in development, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
It is the one game I think it's the one game a developer might agree with us on for this like type of category. Like, it is possible they might be like, yes, this has been the most distressing.
The investors would certainly agree with us.
Yes, that's true. I mean, they sued the company, so yes.
And then you get into the post-release stuff of like, they're up to version 106, which pushed right before Christmas. They have not had an update since then. The game is still not fixed. It is still not back on Sony's stores. And then recently
they did promise a big January update.
Yes, they did. And January 13th, they put up a thing saying like, our commitment. Literally, the article on fucking their website is called Cyberpunk 2077. Our commitment to quality. Like, that ship sailed. It is too late. Your commitment to fix it, sure. But even their statement they put up is like loosely like throwing QA under the bus in some ways. Like, it is bizarre. Like the continued fiasco of Cyberpunk 2077 is the part where you're just going, I can't believe this is still on fire in this way. They had to put out graphs and charts and say like, all right, okay, so we put this fuzzy box near the end, and then the next gen upgrades are going to come sometime in 2021. We know we said something a little more near term at some point. But like they're going to put out one patch here in January supposedly, and then a 1.2 patch I believe in February, and then it just is this like question mark line of like free DLCs, next gen upgrades, and then at the end they're probably going like profit, but like more profit.
Well, that's what I mean on like the development side. Like, it does not sound like it has been anything but distress, like for the people working on this game. Like the stress, distress. Like, it sounds like it must be horrible inside there right now. Of what and before the stories that came out before. Not even to mention that stuff. But the what is going on? What is the state of this game? What is the overreach of? I mean, Brad, you talked a little bit about it with Warcraft 3 Reforged and developers, and the kind of expectation of quality of product. Like, I think that's a lot of what got people jazzed about this, right? Like something kind of coming out of CD Projekt Red, and like, somebody's.
I don't know if I'd go that far on that one, because like Witcher 3 was huge, but prior to that, they were kind of just like a boutique, Euro RPG kind of like, they were sort of a niche studio. They had one like massive hit,
Yeah, but that's what it is. That's the whole thing, is that like, you've seen these quotes over and over again from devs saying like, we raised the flags on these problems. We told them over and over again, this is not going to fly the way it is. And they kept applying this notion of the Witcher 3 magic will just happen. And like when you think about the fact that they had one hit that they put together that was a genuinely great, awesome game, and you combine that with the just absurd amount of dick-swinging swagger they came out with fucking Cyberpunk promotions with, the degree of confidence that they tried to demonstrate, saying, like, we're gonna fucking revolutionize this shit again, we're gonna fucking knock it out of the park, and then realizing that basically there was just a little mouse in a hamster wheel back there, like, hopefully spinning fast enough to make the game go. Like, it's just so fucking ridiculous.
It's I think like that the most alarming revelation to me about this game, setting everything else aside, is that the base game that's there, like what they shipped, even when it works for people, is just not something many people think is very good at all. Like, it's just a fairly average first-person RPG that's
like fine.
Also a half-baked GTA clone.
It's fine. The writing isn't great. You want more out of the clone. They
didn't deliver the things. They didn't deliver the things from Witcher 3 that were the things that made Witcher 3 so popular.
Yeah, but I think then you get into, God, okay, look at the way they promoted the game. And granted, like, the pandemic happened. That's going to affect a lot of games in a lot of different ways. And, I don't at least want to just say that out loud. But look at the way they promoted the game and pumped it up to the point where at one point they were... Was it the most valuable company in Poland?
I think it was
stock-wise.
Like they were the second most valuable developer in all of Europe after Ubisoft.
Okay, like that's a pretty
multiple
high
billions
number.
of dollars. Yes,
and
they're getting sued by the Polish government, right?
Yes, and I think the law firm that did that first lawsuit at least was associated with.
The first lawsuit.
Yeah, which but okay, so like the part of like, we're going to over promote this thing, we're going to fucking market it to the moon and get everyone super hyped about it, and Keanu Reeves, blah, 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 blah. And then, hey, it worked. We're the second most valuable company. Does someone need to be looking at them to see, like, did someone sell a bunch of stock right before this game came out? Like, have they been pumping this up? And then, like, they're like, oh, game's got to ship. All right, fucking quick, shove all these documents in the fire. It's just, it's, I'd be interested to see that stuff, because, like, they set their reputation on fire. Obviously, the valuation of the company's in a different state now. And it's just like, you just look at it and go, like, God damn, like, this game didn't need to go down like this, because if you just kind of shipped what you had and promoted what you had, this game's okay. But I guess, like, and that's where you get into, like, did the pandemic impact their ability to make good on some of the features they hinted at previously when they showed it off at E3, and some of the other stuff that happened back there that is just straight up not in the game. There's a fascinating list that people have put together, and I don't normally go for, and I don't in this case either, because it gets a little witch hunty in a way of, like, here's stuff they showed pre-release that's not in the game. I think, that stuff changes all the time.
I think we all know at this point
but-
that E3 demos are essentially puppet shows. Like they're not represent, especially for like big games like this that are, you know, and it's from all the development stories that are going around there. It sounds like they spent a long time fucking around trying to find what that thing was going to be, and then when it came time to make the game, they did not have enough time to do what they wanted to do. And a big part, like there's even a couple of stories going around about that one E3 demo where they're just like, yeah, we spent a ton of time making that demo that we probably could have spent making the game, but instead we made that demo, and everyone at E3 got jackets.
That's every Naughty Dog game. That's every, you know, like E3 demos. Yes, they are often sections of the game polished up, but it's a lot of work done at the last minute to turn that into something that works at E3, but then they probably have to go back and rip out to make it into a real video game. Like that's not new, and
that's common.
It's not great, but it's not great that those teams have to waste all that time on that stuff. But like, you know, whatever, you have to market your game. I get
it's not some smoking gun that like, you know, incriminates them in a unique way or something. Though.
But I wonder. Like, at what point do you cut bait on the PS4 and the, you know, Xbox One X version and say we just focus on making this a PS5 Series X PC title? This is not working out on these last gen consoles, and because that scope must be incredibly hard. Like to try and get that thing to run from base PS4 to be the looker it wants to be on a high end PC, like that. I don't know. I feel like that story somewhere in there is a story of the scope just being spread too thin. Like,
I mean, that very likely was not an option for them, just because of the relative size of the install bases. I mean, if they were to only ship that game on next gen, there's no way they could even come close to recouping. So the real solution is don't fucking ship the game until it works on all platforms.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's very easy to play armchair quarterback for me inside that thing and be like, you know, at some point, what does that look like?
Yeah, like I can't really say what they should have done. I can look at what they have done and say this is a misstep. Like, you know, the statement they just put out, like that's not. They should have done a better job with that. There are aspects of the game, the shipping game, that I can look at and go like, hey, like this stuff is not great. Separate from how it was marketed, all that other stuff. I think, you know, especially like in a like critical context, I think you have to put a lot of that stuff aside, and just look at what came out, and just go like, hey, this game has a ton of problems, and to the point where Sony pulled it from the store. To the point where, and I think, you know, if you want to get this into a larger territory, to the point where like this is going to change business practices, the way this game went down. Around, and some of them should change, like the refund story, the way players can and can't get refunds, and how different platform holders handle their refund processes. Sony's is not great. No, I don't think anyone's is truly great. Steam is like they've made improvements. The GOG refund policy is, you know, it's okay, but it's still not fast enough. It's still not, you know, it's still not doing what it truly needs to do. And so I think like if there's like a positive aspect to this, it's that stuff got a big light, you know, in its face to be like, hey, fucking button it up, be better, be more consumer friendly, and maybe that'll affect some positive change there. And you know, but other than that, it's another story of like, hey, here's a game where people crunched for a very long time, and that sucks. And in this case, the game did not come out well. In plenty of other cases, people crunch and the game comes out great. So it's even hard to point too many fingers at that, is because it's just shitty all around. But yeah,
it's just a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm of so many bad decisions.
Yep. A lot happened.
I think the PlayStation Store thing.
They were also, you know, punching above their weight too. Like, you know, they were trying to take on things that, you know, studios much larger, you know, are typically doing, and they were trying to do it with just, you know, a few hundred people. That was, the scope of that game, just ridiculous. They couldn't do it.
And I think, you know, it was very easy to look at like the success of The Witcher 3, you know, because after they're like, we're going to do Gwent, we're going to do this, like, you know, this was their move to be like, this was like their Bethesda move, like when Bethesda went from like small ass Bethesda to Oblivion came out, and suddenly it's like, oh, Bethesda, and as they continue to go on that path and make bigger and bigger games, right? As more and more broken, it fits in a lot of ways. But they blew it. Blew it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's again a crazy story.
All you have to say is that Sony pulled it from sale on their store.
Yeah,
like that's it.
The ripples
Sony's
of that.
This is too hot. We don't want to be a part of this anymore. Now we have to.
That does not happen,
and it's still not back.
That does not happen.
Yeah, that's
they were pretty distressed
certainly
there
not
over
to a game
Sony,
of this magnitude.
Yeah.
I might be overblowing this slightly, but ever since Sony pulled Cyberpunk from the store, I have wondered, is this going to be like a flashpoint for what return policies can be? What games can exist on these marketplaces? Because it's not like Cyberpunk is the most broken game that has ever been sold in any of these stores. That's not the case. Like, there are there's garbage all over those different storefronts. And like the notion of this, like, I don't know what the letter of the law ends up being for this, because there's games you could point to from big publishers. Even you could point to the fucking EA Sports lineup every goddamn year. You could point to those 2K fucking WWE games almost every goddamn year, and you could point and be like, this is such a shoddy product, but is that enough to put it in the same category? And that's the thing. I don't know what that definition becomes.
I think that what you do end up with, though, is that on the other side of this, on the other side of like, okay, people broke through and finally got their refunds and finally made something happen on this front. I think now when you get to the next broken WWE game, and when you get to the next game that people can even point and like remember, like, remember what happened with Cyberpunk? You were going to have people wanting this for every single one of those. And that is probably a good thing, I think, again, for consumers long term, that they can get refunds and the games need to ship games need to not be broken when they ship.
Yes.
Like that this is not a fucking drum that people should have to beat for multiple fucking years. But that is this business, and it has not gotten better over the last 5 years or the last 10 years. Like, if anything, it is like cases like this getting through, it is getting worse. Like, what was that? That was the first Assassin's Creed of the generation, right? That like all the fucking
Unity.
faces came off. Yeah, Unity.
Yeah.
Unity, yeah.
Like, this should have happened then, too. Yeah. This should have happened before this, but this was the perfect storm, as you said. And now I wonder what will happen the next time a game that is as broken as something like an Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, taking Unity as an example, they issued a massive mea culpa for that thing, and we're right back here. They gave free games away and all kinds of shit for that thing.
Yeah, giving free games away is very different from I want my fucking money back.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a different time, but like the point is, like this has happened and will probably happen again. I don't know.
And I want to clearly state. Sorry, go ahead, Vinny.
Well, I think it's just important to not understate the fuck me, fuck you nature of the CD Projekt Red getting out there and saying, hey, if you're not happy, go ask for a refund on Xbox or PSN, and then Sony saying, I'm sorry, what? And I think you will not see developers ever do that.
Oh no!
I mean, I'm not sure what kind of legal terms that puts Sony in for being like, I'm not a lawyer, but like them pulling it down directly after that in the middle of the night for them should not be understated. That seemed like
it shouldn't, but it ultimately it means that Sony is the one that has now opened that door. And I don't know if they're going to be able to just close it. I mean, I think it's not that I don't think they were justified in making that move, but they have cracked open that Pandora's box, and it is going to release those floodgates in a way that I'm not sure they're prepared for. And I'll say it again, I'm with Jeff. I think this is not a bad thing on its face. I think people being able to seek out those refunds and being able to say, this thing is a piece of shit. This is not what I was promised to be sold is not a bad thing. But the crack you heard when this happened was the chill running up every publisher's spine the second this happened, because they are now in a position where they have to take a long, hard look at this stuff. And they're already freaking out about finding ways to extract the maximum amount of money out of these fucking tens of 20s of hundreds of millions of dollar projects that they're making. And the idea that if they don't ship it in a state where they are bulletproof on this stuff, they might end up in a similar situation, that it forces them to rethink a lot of things about how they go about making these games and releasing them.
Yeah, they should make them work.
I agree.
Games should work when they go on sale. Like it really should be that simple. Obviously, the logistics of how games are made, it is obviously not that simple. But it needs to be closer to that. And Cyberpunk is at the tipping point, or can be, maybe will be the tipping point where you see like, okay, maybe this will long term lead to some kind of positive change.
Every game will be early access. We're still in development.
Or every single game will come with multiple disclaimers and
it's a living product.
You will now see fucking, just like Gmail said beta under it for a decade. You'll now just like, they're just like, someone's going in right now on like, maybe they already printed up the Madden covers and they're just writing the word beta under it on every single copy.
I mean, I'm still shocked that somebody hasn't used early access for that exact purpose with a major release yet.
Yeah.
Well, they actually, I mean, there have been times when they've tried that with Madden. They've done like, live betas and stuff, and then the game still comes out fucked. Like it's just it's not even really a shield. It's just like, oh yeah, no, we play tested this. Here's the game. Ugh.
But like, yeah, the beta has lost all of its teeth also because now that's just a marketing thing. Now that's like a pre-order and you get to play it for this weekend.
It's just
like,
a demo.
Okay, like maybe they test their servers. Maybe they're like, oh, our servers crumbled under the load because we tried something new here. Then half the time that shit breaks on launch day too. So it's a fucking mess. That's video games.
It's a mess.
All right.
And that's video games.